It's February. While 9% of you have abandoned your weight loss resolutions by now, Fat Tuesday is literally 2 weeks from this premiere. Hey, I'm not judging. I love body image so much I literally create and teach it here. But speaking of weight loss, I'm curious about your erasing skills. Last episode I mentioned that you should have mechanical erasers, including the standard size like you find on a pencil and a thinner one for precise edges. I firmly believe that knowing how to erase is equally as important as the business end of your tool, and I bet you don't even realize that not knowing certain erasing techniques is causing some of your struggles while learning to draw. So, one and all, welcome back to Illustrated by DeForrest, and I'm going to show you a few of those ways to put your eraser at its full potential to get your art at its full potential. My name is DeForrest, and I will be your host. So I'm going to explain this in 3 parts. First, some universal techniques, then types of real-world erasers and how you use them, and then we'll finish off with some digital knowledge. So first thing I want to talk about is that we're not here to write, we're here to draw. So you want to make sure you're holding your eraser or any other art tool the proper way. Now, some people just try to hold it straight up like they are writing. I recommend holding it not necessarily parallel to the paper because that's kind of impossible, but just at a very, very slight angle right there. That way you can actually see what you're erasing as opposed to having your hand or your thumb or even the eraser itself block your way. Holding it to the side and looking down gives you full control. Okay, so I have 3 examples I'm going to show you all right now. Now, the first thing I want to show you is, once again, holding your eraser. I'm going to hold it off to the side because I'm pretty sure you guys have been doing this where you try to hold it like you're about to write. Sorry for the glare if it doesn't come across, but hey, you can see that my thumb is pretty much blocking the tip of it. I'm pretty sure you guys have been leaning over to try to see what exactly is going on. There's no need for that though. What you need to do, just bring it out just a little bit. Instead of here, you're over here, and you can see that I'm holding it off to the side. That way, I'm in a relaxed stance. I'm actually sitting straight up. Let's put that example back up that I had of what we're going to aim for as far as turning this stick line into a thin one, because remember, everything that you want is already there. You just need to remove everything else around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit stylized here. And I see I'm using very small strokes. And now I'm going to do something that you'll never see coming. I'm going to turn this paper around. I've said on the show before that you want to keep things as relaxed as possible. Hand strain is real. You don't have to be doing all this to get what you need. Now I'm just going to come in here just to really add a little bit of style to this. Instead of doing the exact example, I'm just going to come in and add a little bit more curve to it. I'm going to turn it back around again. You know what? I'm just going to bring that to a fine tip. All right. Now from there, what you can do is you have most of what you need. Then you can just come across back with your regular pencil. Once again, I have 4H lead in this thing, and there, just do a little bit of refinement, and there we go. So let's do a little bit of before and after there. That's pretty good. Now I'm gonna go to this other example. Like, I've been drawing eyes a lot on this channel, and we're gonna do it one more time, except we're just gonna erase what we don't need. So we have a very rough sketch right here. And most rough sketches will end up like this, where it is just a straggly mess, and that is perfectly fine because once again, your line is there. Now, like you saw in the first example, I'm going to use small strokes. You see I'm not erasing all the way across or anything like that. I'm just going bit by bit, and I'm just going to erase what we need right here. Don't try to get rid of everything at once. As you're erasing, you want to just stop every now and then and just take a look at what you have. This is called erase, assess, erase. Like, think about how sculptors work. They chip away at everything bit by bit. Thousands of times they're at their stones until they have exactly what they want. And it's literally just one chip that separates incomplete work from complete. It's like after chipping at 1,000 times is that 1,001 that says, all right, we're done here. Once again, turning the paper over. It's like giving this thing a haircut pretty much for all these eyelashes. And I'm just gonna go off to a sharp point right there. That is what our eye looks like. So from there, what we do, we can just take the pencil again and straighten out those lines just a little bit. Now we can focus on the pupil of the eye, which is the black part. And what I'm gonna do is just erase and slightly round that circle. I'm actually going to put a little bit of shine into it right over here. You want to put the shine in the top half of the eye because that's where most light sources are, either on the ceiling or the sun, just usually above you. And there we go. That is our eye. Let's do before and after on that. Last thing is that we can also erase in negative space. You can apply this technique to entire spaces as well as create intentional negative space. Also, if you want a little more preciseness, I have a trick for that. Just go in there and just, not the cleanest of very sharp points, but it will definitely do. Now let's actually just do a little bit of drawing by erasing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take very simple outline. I'm just going to put a little face in here. I can actually somewhat see where exactly it's going to go. Sorry if it doesn't look very well on camera. Once again, I use 4H leads because they are very light, and as you can see, they erase very easily, especially with these white erasers. So now we have a face with a bunch of random shapes on the side. Nothing too inspiring, but you see my point. So let's talk about those erasers by talking about the ones that you don't use. Once again, this is art time, so use art materials. Pink erasers are made of mostly synthetic rubber, and they're just meant for one purpose, and that's to erase your parents' school essay since they couldn't cheat with AI yet. These are mass produced to remove graphite, and that's about it. Since it's for basic writing, don't only care about getting rid of letters just enough for you to write new ones, usually leaving smudges behind. In art, we need those marks completely gone so those pink nubs won't cut it. Also, if you get desperate enough to use them, you need to be careful as they dry out over time. The only thing worse than smudging is leaving behind those pink streaks on your paper. Now these are made of longer lasting vinyl or plastic, and I have more of these than any other eraser. I like to call these fat slabs. Use these for erasing entire areas, but at the same time, use your small strokes so you don't make a wild mistake. We also have the thick mechanical eraser. The basic eraser you'll find in the store, maybe in the office aisle. And if you're having trouble finding the thinner ones, I recommend that these be your main eraser on hand. While great at erasing in general, it could be tough to see exactly what you're erasing. They can block you from seeing what's actually on the paper. To avoid that, you get the crown jewel of your arsenal by getting your thin mechanical erasers. Now, I could wax poetic about the benefits of these all throughout the episode, but you literally saw me use it at the beginning, so let's move on. Now, if I say more for traditional or analog artists, I'm sure I'd have a lot of gum erasers. As I was learning to draw, I came across a few for a little bit, like literally because they're designed to crumble, and I thought they were some of the best erasers I ever used. But since I went primarily digital, I never really invested much in them since. The way they work is that they're really soft and they break down to carry graphite away into pieces. So if you start getting them, make sure to get a lot of them. Because they're really soft, you can only get them in fat slabs, so you have to sacrifice precision for near complete erasure. In that same point, be careful with those crumbs they leave behind, because they can also risk smearing. We also have the gray kneaded eraser. As they're literally putty in your hands, you can take off a piece and smear it or smudge it into whatever shape you need it to be and get some really precise erasing. I recommend paying close attention while using this because this eraser can get really dirty very quick as it picks up your marks. Not a huge hassle though. All you gotta do is roll that putty up, stretch it a few times, and there, good as new. While good for graphite, I recommend this more for charcoal as it'll take away just enough depending on the pressure you put on it. Overall, it's just got that delicate touch that's needed for it. Okay, so I have Adobe Fresco open right here with my example. There's actually one of the stills, one of the in progress pics from a very confused ex-Hudo right here. He's from my book series Street Pedal Black. Check that out at streetpedalblack.com. In the meantime, let's go over some basic erasers. Like the main ones I typically use are the soft round opacity right here and the hard round variable. Also sometimes a soft round variable. And this is all on one flat layer here. So I'm just going to go ahead and just demonstrate just some basic erasing right there, and then no big deal. If you have a drawing tablet with some pressure sensitivity like this old school one right here, what you can do, we'll take hard round variable again. So you can see if I lightly touch and if I press down, light, press down. Let's bring that up to make that effect a little more prominent. All right, so light, press down, light, press down, light, press down, light, press down. So you see how that goes. Now, same for opacity. I'll go with this. If I go light, press down. If I go light, press down, go light, press down. So yeah, a lot of different options for erasing. Another thing I want you to consider is by actually erasing by redrawing. And what I mean by that is I'm going to just zoom in right here and let's take a look at his arm, where I'm just going to go in and just erase basically right here with the eraser tool. Maybe I should use a smaller one. All right, so if I erase and I just go in like that, like yeah, that'll take out the background, but you're left with a few problems here, especially if you're in the middle of refining. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the background color and go back to one of my brushes. Let's pick a very basic brush, hard round. That's really good. And I'm just going to slowly go in and not necessarily erase, but yeah, I'm just going to draw in more of that background. And if you're wondering why I'm doing it this way, I will demonstrate what happens when you don't do it this way. So you can see I have a really soft kind of airbrush technique here as far as shading and rendering goes. So if I just erase that, I'm going to end up with some issues where first I'm probably not the most accurate, even with my small strokes. Now, of course, I could just hover over it and redraw what I need in that way. Yeah, a lot like this, which, yeah, by all means could work depending on how accurate you are. However, I also run into issues when I'm trying to smear or smudge or try to really soften this area. So I would really stick to just redrawing in the background because you don't want to mess with the transparency whatsoever, especially while you're still blending. And with that, I have just taught you what's the destructive method of editing, which is what you do when you actually change the pixels permanently. Now I'd like to tell you about non-destructive editing, which is the primary way that you should be doing this from now on. So let's revisit my work Lene and Lelina. Alright, so here's a grayscale still of them before I cut the background out, and this is them a little while afterward. Quick aside, no, I didn't just rip this from the time-lapse video. I actually saved my progress in separate stills as I go along. If you want to learn more about that and how it benefits you, you might want to check out the link right there. Now you're about to see that I didn't erase these with the basic eraser tool. What I did was I used non-destructive means, which means not changing the pixels on the main layers, that being the two characters right here. Back to Excel right quick, let me introduce you to the layer mask, which is a grayscale sheet that's within the layer that determines what's visible and what's not. Just create a mask right here, have it on hide layer. So you see right here that the entire thing is completely white. You can see that's inside that main layer. Now if it's completely white, that means every single thing is visible. And if I turn it black, then everything inside will go transparent. You can also add shades of gray within the layer to vary how much transparency you actually want. Just remember that the darker you go, the more transparency there will actually be. So after a long day of texture rendering and tax evasion, this is why I use to cut out the characters for my backgrounds. Now back to Lene and Lelina, I start by putting a bright, heavily saturated, solid full color layer below it, so I can see what I'm actually doing as I'm erasing. From there, using a black brush, I paint inside the layer mask along with the outline of the character, going all the way around it and inside any areas of negative space I need. Then I take the lasso selection tool to get rid of the rest. After that, to be safe, I duplicate the entire layer so I'll no longer need to touch the original one. That gives me one layer where I have my characters all alone and everything else around them is transparent. The main advantage to erasing this way is that you don't have to press undo every time you make a mistake. You can just very easily go back into the layer mask and add white where you accidentally erased. You might even notice a mistake late in the game, but you have your layer mask to help as opposed to pressing the undo button an ungodly amount of times. You don't want to erase all your progress if you just now notice something. And there are so many other edits that are considered non-destructive, but we'll save those for another day. For now, I hope I've helped you to stop erasing like a scrub. And to build on that, I have a new worksheet for you. You can practice that by going to the shop at lifeforever3.com. And if you want to be sure that you don't draw like one either, I recommend the previous episode that talks about the 3 tools, and only 3, that you need to get started in your illustration career. Like, you want to click that link in the description as well. Remember that new episodes come out the 3rd of every month, and I thank you so much for your time. Let's make this new year the greatest ever. Move the media. Peace.